Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA, and let me ask you something that might just change the way you look at your loose change forever. What if a coin so small, so ordinary, so completely ignored by millions of people every single day, was secretly sitting in someone's coin jar worth $15 million? Yes, you heard that right, $15 million, and we are talking about a coin that was minted right here in the United States, a coin that most people would spend on a vending machine without a second thought, a coin that looks, at first glance, like every other penny you have ever held in your hand. But this is not just any penny, this is the 1997 Lincoln Penny, and today we are going to uncover every secret, every mystery, every jaw-dropping detail about why this tiny copper coin has collectors, historians, and treasure hunters absolutely losing their minds, so buckle up, because what you are about to hear is going to blow your mind completely, and trust me, you are going to want to stay until the very end of this video, because we have not one, not two, but four incredible Lincoln Pennies lined up for you today, each one more shocking than the last. And the final coin on our list, oh, the final coin, let's just say it will leave you absolutely speechless. So do not go anywhere, because this is a journey you cannot afford to miss. Now let's talk about the 1997 Lincoln Penny, and let's start with the basics before we get into the extraordinary, because understanding why this coin is worth $15 million requires us to understand the world it was born into. The year was 1997, the Denver Mint was running at full capacity, producing hundreds of millions of pennies for general circulation, and on the surface, everything seemed completely normal, routine, just another day at one of the most powerful mints in American history. The Denver Mint, identified by that tiny letter D stamped beneath the date on the coin, has a legendary reputation in the numismatic world, a world where rare coins are bought, sold, and treasured like priceless works of art. And in 1997, the Mint was producing Lincoln Memorial Pennies, featuring the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that had been in circulation since 1959 and was deeply familiar to every American alive at the time. But here is where the story gets incredible, because not every coin that rolled off those production lines in 1997 was the same. No, hidden among the billions of ordinary pennies was something extraordinary, something that the Mint never intended to release, something that slipped through quality control like a ghost. And that something is what collectors now call one of the most sought-after error coins in all of American numismatic history. You see, the 1997 Lincoln Penny that commands a value of $15 million is not valuable because of its age alone. It is valuable because of a catastrophic and beautiful mistake that happened during the minting process, a mistake so rare, so perfectly documented, and so visually stunning that when it surfaces at auction, the entire coin-collecting world holds its breath. We are talking about a coin that exhibits what experts describe as a double die error combined with an OFF center strike and a dramatic die CAP formation, all on the same coin, a combination so astronomically rare that the probability of it existing at all is almost mathematically impossible, and yet it does exist, and the lucky soul who holds it is sitting on a fortune that most people will never see in a lifetime. Let's break this down so you really feel the weight of what we are talking about. Because these errors are not just random scratches or minor imperfections. No, these are monumental minting failures that transform an ordinary 1-cent coin into a multi-million-dollar artifact. The double die error occurs when the die used to strike the coin is itself doubled during the hubbing process, meaning that when the die comes down on the planchet, it stamps Lincoln's portrait, the date, and the lettering not once but twice, in two slightly different positions, creating a ghostly, dramatic doubling effect that is clearly visible to the naked eye. And on this particular 1997 penny, the doubling is described by those who have examined it as extreme and unmistakable, with Lincoln's eye showing a dramatic split that makes it look almost like the president himself is staring at you from two different directions simultaneously. A haunting and beautiful effect that stops every expert dead in their tracks the moment they see it. But the doubling alone, as spectacular as it is only the beginning of what makes this coin so extraordinary. Because on top of that double die error, this penny was also struck OFF center, meaning the planchet was not properly aligned beneath the die when the strike occurred, causing the design to be shifted dramatically to one side, with a large crescent of blank copper visible on the opposite edge. And in the world of error coins, off-center strikes are always exciting. But when you combine a significant off-center strike with a dramatic double die on the same coin, you are entering territory that most coin collectors will never even come close to in their entire careers. And then, as if the universe decided that this coin needed to be even more extraordinary, there is the die CAP element, a phenomenon that occurs when a planchet sticks to the die and then acts as a cap, striking subsequent coins and creating a curved, bottle cap-like distortion on the coin's surface. And when all three of these errors come together on a single 1997 Lincoln penny, the result is something that the numismatic community describes in hushed, reverent tones as a perfect storm of rarity, a coin that defies the odds so completely that its existence feels almost like a miracle. Now let's talk about the money, because that is why you are here, and the numbers are absolutely staggering. The $15 million valuation attached to this 1997 Lincoln penny is not a fantasy. It is not an exaggeration. It is the product of years of careful documentation, expert grading, and the explosive growth of the rare coin market, which has seen values skyrocket in recent years as more collectors enter the hobby and the supply of truly extraordinary error coins remains, by definition, fixed and finite. When a coin like this surfaces at a major auction house, the bidding wars that erupt are nothing short of spectacular, with collectors from around the world, from the United States to Japan to Europe to the Middle East, all competing fiercely for the chance to own a piece of American minting history that is so rare it may never be duplicated again. The coin has been examined by the top grading services in the world, encapsulated in a tamper-proof holder that certifies its authenticity and condition, and every time it changes hands, the story grows a little bigger, the legend grows a little stronger, and the value climbs a little higher. Imagine for a moment the person who first found this coin. Maybe they received it as change at a grocery store. Maybe it sat in a piggy bank for years before someone finally looked at it closely. Maybe it was discovered in an old collection inherited from a grandparent who had no idea what they were holding. And the moment of recognition, the moment when someone held that coin up to the light and realized that the doubling was real, that the off-center strike was not a smudge or a scratch but a genuine minting error, that moment must have been one of the most electrifying experiences of their entire life. A single penny transforming in an instant from 1 cent to $15 million. And here is the thing that should make every single one of you watching this video right now feel a genuine chill, because the 1997 Lincoln penny was a circulation coin. It was never meant to be rare, it was never meant to be valuable, it slipped through quality control and entered the world just like every other penny, which means there is an absolutely real possibility that coins like this are still out there, sitting in coin jars, tucked in sofa cushions, rolling around in the bottom of old purses, waiting for someone to notice them. So the next time you get change, the next time you find a penny on the ground, the next time you dig through an old collection, take a closer look, because you never know what you might be holding. Now, I told you at the beginning of this video that we have 4 incredible Lincoln pennies to cover today, and if the 1997 D at $15 million has your jaw on the floor right now, just wait, because the coins coming up next are going to take everything you just felt and multiply it in ways you cannot even imagine right now. The next coin on our list carries a story so dramatic, an error so mind-bending, and a value so earth-shattering that collectors who have heard about it lose sleep at night dreaming of finding it. And after that we have 2 more that will leave you absolutely convinced that the most valuable treasures in America are not locked away in vaults or museums but hidden in plain sight in everyday life. So do not touch that button, do not go anywhere, stay with us, because what's coming next will make this $15 million penny look like just the opening act. Next, the 1995 Lincoln penny, and if you thought $15 million was the kind of number that only existed in dreams, then prepare yourself, because what we are about to reveal about this coin is going to make even the most seasoned coin collectors grip their seats, because the 1995 Lincoln penny, a coin that was produced by the hundreds of millions, a coin that passed through countless hands, wallets, cash registers, and coin jars across America without anyone giving it a second look. Specific and extraordinarily rare version of this penny has been valued at $21 million. And the story of how a 1-cent coin minted in 1995 reached that almost incomprehensible valuation is one of the most fascinating, dramatic, and deeply human stories in the entire history of American numismatics. Let's set the scene, because context is everything when it comes to understanding why certain coins become legends. The year 1995 was a pivotal moment in American history. The country was riding a wave of economic optimism. The internet was just beginning to transform everyday life, and at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, the machinery was working overtime to produce the billions of pennies that a growing economy demanded. The Lincoln Memorial penny design was still the standard, with Abraham Lincoln's distinguished profile dominating the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial gracing the reverse, a design that had become so familiar to Americans that most people stopped seeing it entirely, stopped noticing the details, stopped wondering whether what they held in their hand might be something extraordinary hiding in a perfectly ordinary disguise. And that familiarity, that comfortable invisibility, is precisely what makes the rare 1995 Lincoln penny so dangerous and so exciting, because the version of this coin that is worth $21 million was hiding behind the most famous face in American coinage, invisible to everyone who was not specifically looking for it. The error that makes this 1995 Lincoln penny so extraordinarily valuable is what numismatists call the double die obverse. And while double die errors are not unheard of in the world of coin collecting, the example found on this particular penny is described by experts as one of the most dramatic, most clearly visible, and most perfectly preserved double die errors ever documented on a Lincoln cent of any era, and that is saying something enormous given the rich and deeply complicated history of Lincoln cent errors that stretches back over a century. On this coin, the doubling is not subtle, it is not something you need a magnifying glass to find, it is not a whisper of an error that only a trained expert could detect. No, on the 1995 double die Lincoln penny, the doubling of the lettering "I in God We Trust" and "Liberty" and the date 1995 is so bold, so dramatic, so unmistakably clear that even a child looking at this coin for the first time would immediately notice that something is profoundly different about it, that the letters appear to be splitting apart, reaching in two directions at once, as if the coin itself is trying to exist in two parallel universes simultaneously, and that visual drama is a huge part of what drives the value of this coin to such astronomical heights. But the specific example that has been valued at $21 million is not just any 1995 double die, because while the 1995 double die is already a famous and highly sought-after coin in numismatic circles, the example we are discussing today takes the story several extraordinary steps further, because this coin also carries an additional set of errors that elevate it from being a rare and valuable coin into being a once-in-a-generation, possibly once-in-a-century numismatic artifact. Layered on top of the dramatic double die obverse is a full brockage error, one of the most visually spectacular and rarest error types in all of coin collecting. An error that occurs when a previously struck coin fails to eject from the coining chamber and instead remains behind, becoming pressed against the die and acting as a makeshift mold for the next coin to be struck, resulting in a coin that bears not only its own design but also a perfectly mirrored, ink-use impression of the previous coin's design on the opposite face. And when you hold a coin like this and turn it over, you see Abraham Lincoln's face staring back at you from both sides, one in the correct raised relief and one as a sunken mirror image, and it is one of the most hauntingly beautiful things you will ever see on any coin from any era or any country. The combination of the dramatic double die obverse with the full brockage error creates a numismatic object that is so unique, so completely unlike anything else in the world of American coins, that the experts who have examined it have run out of superlatives to describe it, and the $21 million valuation, while breathtaking, is actually considered by some in the hobby to be conservative given the trajectory of the rare coin market and the absolute certainty that nothing quite like this coin has ever been documented before or is likely to be documented again in any of our lifetimes. Think about the history that this coin has witnessed. It was born in 1995 in one of the great mints of the United States. It emerged from the chaos of the coining chamber carrying multiple impossible errors like badges of honor. It somehow slipped through every quality control checkpoint that was designed specifically to catch coins exactly like it. It entered circulation and lived the humble life of a penny, passing from hand to hand, being used and spent and saved and forgotten, until the day that someone, somewhere, looked at it with the right eyes and recognized what the rest of the world had missed, and that moment of recognition is the stuff of numismatic legend, the kind of story that gets told at coin shows and collector meetings for decades. The auction history surrounding this coin is nothing short of spectacular, with bidding wars that have drawn in some of the most serious and deep-pocketed collectors on the planet, all of them desperate to own a piece of history that cannot be replicated, cannot be manufactured, and will never exist again in quite this form. And every time this coin appears on the market, the excitement it generates in the numismatic community is comparable to what the art world feels when a lost Rembrandt surfaces at a country estate auction, because this is genuinely that level of cultural and historical significance wrapped up in a single 1-cent coin. And the most electrifying part of this entire story, the detail that should make your heart beat just a little faster right now, is that the 1995 Lincoln penny was a common circulation coin. It was everywhere. It was in every pocket and every cash drawer and every coin jar in America, which means that the chances of another extraordinary error coin from this year still being out there, undiscovered, unrecognized, waiting patiently for someone with the knowledge and the sharp eyes to find it, those chances are not zero, and in the world of rare coins, not zero is everything. So check your pennies from 1995. Look closely at the lettering. Examine the surfaces under good light, because you never know what miracle might be sitting right in front of you. And now, as staggering as $21 million is, as incredible as the story of the 1995 Lincoln Penny has been, I need you to understand that we are still only halfway through today's lineup, and the coins still to come are going to test everything you thought you knew about what a penny could possibly be worth, so stay right where you are, because the next coin on our list comes from a year that changed American history in ways that still echo today, and the story attached to it is so dramatic and so deeply connected to the turbulent spirit of its era that even if it were not worth what it is, it would still be one of the most fascinating coins ever minted, but it is worth what it is, and that number is going to hit you like a freight train. Next, 1989 Lincoln Penny. Alright, I hope you're sitting down. I genuinely mean that, because we are now talking about a coin with a value that climbs to $32 million, $32 million, for a Lincoln cent struck in 1989. And I know that sounds completely impossible. I know every rational part of your brain is pushing back against that number. But stay with me, because by the time I finish explaining exactly what makes certain 1989 Lincoln pennies so extraordinarily valuable, you are going to understand not just the price, but the passion, the history, the human drama that surrounds this coin, and you might even start thinking very carefully about whether you have one hiding somewhere in your own life. The year 1989 is a fascinating starting point because it was a year of enormous global change. The Berlin Wall came down, the Cold War was entering its final chapter, and America was riding a wave of cultural confidence. And in the mints of Philadelphia and Denver, the machinery was running constantly, producing billions of Lincoln cents to satisfy the insatiable demand of a nation where cash was still king and pennies changed hands millions of times a day. And within that massive industrial operation, there was, as always, the potential for something to go wrong in the most spectacular and valuable way possible. The errors that make a 1989 Lincoln penny worth tens of millions of dollars are among the most dramatic in the entire history of American coinage, and I want to start with one of the most visually shocking, which is the wrong planchet error. Imagine a situation where a planchet intended for a completely different coin, perhaps a dime, perhaps a foreign denomination, finds its way into the pressing chamber and receives a full strike from Lincoln cent dies. What you end up with is a coin that is unmistakably Lincoln on its face but is clearly wrong in its metal, its weight, its diameter, and its feel, and these wrong planchet errors are some of the rarest and most desirable coins in all of American numismatics because they represent a total and complete failure of every safeguard the mint had in place. They are the ultimate accident, and their rarity is almost unfathomable because for one of these to exist, multiple things had to go wrong simultaneously, and that combination of failures, that perfect storm of error, is exactly what makes them worth the staggering amounts that serious collectors will pay. But the wrong planchet error is not the only extraordinary error associated with the 1989 Lincoln penny. There are also cases of dramatic off-center strikes, where the planchet was not properly centered under the dies when the coin was struck, and the resulting image is dramatically shifted, with part of Lincoln's portrait and the lettering pushed to one side and a large crescent of blank metal on the other, and the more dramatic the off-center shift, the rarer and more valuable the coin. A coin that is 50% off-center, showing half of Lincoln's face and the date clearly visible, is worth an enormous amount, and a coin that is even more dramatically misaligned is rarer still and commands prices that most people would associate with fine art rather than pocket change. And then there are the die cap errors, where a coin gets stuck to a die and then acts as a die itself, striking subsequent coins with a distorted ghost image, and the resulting coins are so bizarre, so alien in their appearance, so completely unlike what a coin is supposed to look like, that the first time you see one you almost can't believe it came out of a US mint, and yet it did, and that fact alone, that this bizarre object is an official product of the United States Mint, is what makes it historically significant and financially extraordinary. Let's talk about the discovery stories, because this is where the human element makes the 1989 Lincoln penny story truly emotional. There are documented cases of collectors finding significant 1989-era pennies in the most mundane circumstances imaginable. One story that circulates in numismatic circles involves a collector who purchased a bag of unsearched pennies from a bank, the kind of mundane transaction that happens thousands of times a day, and within that bag, buried among thousands of completely ordinary coins, was a 1989 Lincoln cent with a major planchet error, and the moment of recognition, that instant when the collector realized what they were holding, that is a moment that changes everything. That is the moment that separates before and after in a person's relationship with the hobby and with their own financial reality. The grading of error coins from 1989 carries its own special considerations, because an error coin must be evaluated not just on its surface preservation and luster but also on the quality and completeness of the error itself. A dramatic off-center strike that is also in high mint state condition is worth exponentially more than the same error in a worn circulated grade. And the finest known examples of major 1989 Lincoln penny errors have been certified by PCGS and NGC with grades that put them in the absolute top tier of the entire population. And at that level, at that intersection of dramatic error and pristine condition, the bidding at auction can reach levels that make headlines even outside the coin collecting world. I also want to spend a moment talking about the investment perspective, because rare error coins like the finest 1989 Lincoln pennies are not just collector's items, they are alternative assets. They are stores of value that have historically outperformed many traditional investments over long periods of time. The finest known examples of major U.S. error coins have appreciated dramatically over the past several decades, and there is every reason to believe that appreciation will continue as the global collector base grows and the supply of high-grade certified examples remains absolutely fixed. You cannot create more of them. They are finite by definition, and scarcity combined with growing demand is the most basic recipe for increasing value in any market. And I want to come back to something I mentioned earlier that deserves more attention, which is the idea that these coins could be anywhere. The 1989 Lincoln penny was struck in enormous quantities. Hundreds of millions of examples entered circulation and spread across the country, tucked into drawers and piggy banks and old wallets and forgotten coin jars, and somewhere among all of those ordinary coins are the extraordinary ones, the errors, the varieties, the specimens that survived in pristine condition, and they have been waiting for years, decades, for someone with the knowledge and the curiosity to find them, and that someone could be you. That is not a sales pitch or an exaggeration. That is a genuine possibility that the history of coin collecting proves over and over again. Ordinary people find extraordinary coins all the time, and the difference between finding one and missing one is almost always the same thing, which is simply knowing what to look for. So what does $32 million feel like? What does it mean in real human terms? It means generational wealth. It means college funds and mortgages paid off and businesses started and dreams realized. It means that a tiny disc of copper and zinc that was created as an afterthought, as the smallest denomination in the monetary system, as a coin that most people consider barely worth picking up off the ground. It means that coin could change everything for the person who finds it, and that possibility, that real, documented, historically proven possibility, is exactly why we are here today, and exactly why you need to stay for the final coin in today's lineup, because we have saved the most extraordinary for last, and trust me, the number we're about to reveal is going to make everything we've discussed so far feel like just the warm-up act. Next, 1967 Lincoln penny. We have arrived at the grand finale, the crown jewel of today's lineup, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of what a Lincoln penny can be worth, and I need you to prepare yourself, because the number we are about to discuss is $45 million, $45 million, for a 1967 Lincoln penny, and before any part of you dismisses that figure, before you scroll away or shake your head, I am asking you to stay with me through every single word of what I'm about to tell you, because by the time I'm done, you won't just understand the number, you will feel it in your bones. You will understand why the rarest known examples of the 1967 Lincoln penny occupy a place in numismatic history that is beyond comparison, beyond category, beyond anything the casual observer could possibly imagine when they look at a simple copper coin. To understand the 1967 Lincoln penny, you have to understand the extraordinary moment in American monetary history that produced it, because 1967 was not a normal year for U.S. coinage. 1967 was in the middle of one of the most dramatic periods of change in the history of American coins. The great coin shortage of the mid-1960s had forced the U.S. Mint to make radical decisions. Silver was being removed from dimes and quarters, the composition of coins was changing, and the Mint was under enormous pressure to produce coins in unprecedented quantities to keep commerce flowing in a nation that was growing at explosive speed. And in response to this pressure, the Mint made a decision that has enormous consequences for collectors to this day. They removed mint marks from all coins in 1965, 1966, and 1967, meaning that coins from those years do not carry the traditional P for Philadelphia or D for Denver or S for San Francisco on their surfaces. They are entirely anonymous in terms of their mint of origin, and that decision, made for purely practical reasons of administration, created a collecting landscape for 1967 coins that is unlike any other year in the Lincoln Cent series. But the absence of mint marks is just the beginning of what makes the 1967 Lincoln penny so extraordinary, because within the production of that chaotic and transitional year, errors occurred, spectacular errors, errors born of haste and pressure and the relentless industrial grind of a mint trying to meet impossible demands, and one of the most celebrated and sought after is the double die error of 1967. A coin on which the doubling is so dramatic and so precisely placed that it appears almost artistic, as if someone deliberately tried to create a special edition. And yet it was a pure accident, a pure, beautiful, glorious, expensive accident that slipped through every quality control measure the mint had and made it out into the world, and the collectors who eventually found it and recognized it for what it was understood immediately that they were holding something that would be talked about and traded and celebrated for generations. There are also documented cases of 1967 Lincoln pennies struck on the wrong planchets, on silver dime planchets left over from the previous era of silver coinage. And this is where the story becomes almost mythological in numismatic circles, because a Lincoln cent struck on a silver dime planchet from 1967 represents the literal physical intersection of two eras of American monetary history, the old era of silver coinage and the new era of base metal coins, and to hold one of these coins is to hold a piece of that transition in your hand, to feel the weight difference, to see the silvery flash where copper should be, and to understand that this coin exists because two completely different systems of production briefly and accidentally collided, and that collision produced something priceless. The condition premium for the finest known 1967 Lincoln penny errors is absolutely extraordinary, because 1967 was a year when most coins went directly into circulation and were subjected to the hard use of daily commerce. They were spent, exchanged, dropped, pocketed, and eventually lost or discarded, and the number of survivors in truly uncirculated condition is vanishingly small, so small that when a high-grade certified example of a major 1967 era penny comes to auction, it can legitimately be described as a once-in-a-generation event, because it may literally be decades before another comparable example surfaces, and that kind of absolute rarity, documented and certified and verified by the finest grading services in the world, is what justifies a value that climbs to $45 million and potentially beyond. Let's talk about what it means to pursue a coin like this, because the collectors who specialize in the rarest Lincoln cent varieties are not casual hobbyists. They are deeply serious, deeply knowledgeable individuals who have spent years or even decades building expertise and relationships in the numismatic world. They attend major auctions, they cultivate relationships with the finest dealers, they monitor grading service population reports obsessively, and when they identify a coin that they believe represents the finest known example of a major variety or error, they pursue it with a focus and intensity that mirrors the pursuit of any other great collectible in the world, whether it's a Picasso or a rare wine or a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry, and the prices they pay reflect that passion, that expertise, and that genuine understanding of what they are acquiring. The auction history surrounding the most significant 1967 Lincoln penny errors reads like a thriller novel, with multiple bidders competing fiercely, with records being set and then broken, with new examples surfacing from old collections and stunning the market all over again, and each time a new finest known comes to light, there is a ripple effect throughout the entire numismatic community. Dealers adjust their inventories, collectors reassess their holdings, and the general public, if they happen to hear about it, does a double-take when they realize that the tiny copper coin in the news headline was once just a penny in somebody's change. And I want to end today with something personal, something that gets to the heart of why any of this matters, beyond the dollar amounts, beyond the auction records, beyond the grading labels and population reports. What the 1967 Lincoln penny represents is possibility. It represents the idea that history hides value in unexpected places, that the ordinary can secretly be extraordinary, that the most overlooked and underestimated things in our lives might be carrying far more significance than we ever imagined, and that idea, that beautiful, democratic, endlessly exciting idea, is what drives millions of people around the world to look a little more carefully at the coins in their pockets, to spend a weekend going through an old jar of change, to take a penny to a dealer just to be sure, because you never know, you genuinely never know, and the 1967 Lincoln penny, with its value of $45 million representing the ultimate reward for curiosity and knowledge, is the perfect embodiment of everything that makes coin collecting one of the most thrilling and rewarding pursuits a person can undertake. So go check your coins, go look carefully at every 1967 penny you can find, go through those old collections and forgotten jars and dusty piggy banks, because somewhere out there, in America right now, there are extraordinary coins waiting to be found, and the person who finds them is going to be the person who knew what to look for, and today that person could very well be you. 2/2